Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this, folks. I have, and we'll get into a little bit of my background here in a moment, but I've been in the marketing space for so long. I just love sharing information with people. So in this format, as an opportunity from the Forsyth County Chamber of Commerce, I couldn't say no. Refining your social media sales pitch is not a ruse, right? It's not intended to be a title for this webinar that tricks you into thinking that we're going to learn about something that we're not. But if you've been paying attention at all in the social media space, at least even on your personal accounts, you know that buy my stuff, that sort of direct sales pitch from a company that you've likely not heard of, isn't terribly effective. So we're here today to help you refine that a little bit. And most importantly, to think about how it applies directly to your business. So there is some general advice today in the deck that we're going to go through. And I would encourage everyone to think about how it applies, if it does, to your specific business. So this is specifically what we are going to talk about today. You can see the agenda up on the screen. We'll move through this rather quickly. We don't have as many slides, I think, as we do minutes for the webinar, which is a great thing. That means I'm not going to drone on and show slide after slide after slide. I'll be talking more than I will be showing today, which I think is good because it keeps everybody engaged in a webinar format. And certainly we've probably all learned a good bit about how to conduct ourselves virtually more so than we'd ever had. The very last section of this webinar is called best practices. That's kind of a lame corporate term. I've put in parentheses there, things you can do immediately. So we will talk a good bit about some strategic elements to your social media sales approach today. We might talk a little pie in the sky, right? But towards the end, we're just going to give you a number of rapid fire things that you can do immediately to help with your social media efforts. All right. Thank you for the introduction. Previously, I'm not going to bother introducing myself again. I am the principal and founder of Working Web Media. So Working Web Media is a marketing agency in the Forsyth County area. And we believe, you can see on the screen, that small and medium-sized businesses deserve the same level of knowledge and expertise that large corporations have access to today. That's our why. We've all read or at least watched the video Simon Sinek's Start with Why, right? Our why is believing that organizations of all sizes deserve the level of knowledge and expertise that corporations have access to. And that, for me personally, comes from years of corporate experience. And I looked around and said, well, I have the knowledge and the expertise. Why not extend that to small and medium-sized businesses? And that's what we do in our agency. And we do that through website creation, email marketing, social, and advertising. Those are really our core services for the SMBs in the Forsyth County area. Now, just a little bit about me. I am local to Forsyth County. Married with children. My children go to Forsyth County schools. Embarrassingly, I do have 25 years of marketing experience now, which I guess officially makes me old. So you're welcome. My company did in 2019 and will continue in 2020 donate approximately just a little over $10,000 in services, primarily to Forsyth County PTOs. So we do have a bit of a giving arm, and I want to continue that and accelerate it in 2020 and 2021. Continued involvement in the county. My son, for example, is a Cub Scout, and so I'm the committee chair for PAC 107 and PAC 807. A little bit of a fun note about me. I've played on stage at the Grand Ole Opry. That was cool. We can talk about that later. Not really relevant today, but it's a cool little note about me, right? To help bring my personality forward for you today. And all examples in this deck are current customers in the Forsyth County area, and several of them are active chamber members. And by the way, I encourage all of my customers to become Forsyth County Chamber members. So those that are not chamber members today, they will continue to hear from me. So to the chamber folks, I believe in what you're doing, and thank you for your efforts. So let's talk about the evolution of social media, right? Where was it and where are we headed? As we get into this, I really love Wired magazine, wired.com today, right? They don't do a magazine anymore. And they have this section of wired.com called Tired and Wired, right? What is old and what is new? And if you look here on the screen, it'll make your head spin a little bit because things change so much, right? MySpace is most certainly tired. It is still around, actually, which I guess shouldn't be terribly surprising, right? TikTok is wired. I I am really happy today that I have a 13-year-old daughter. She's taught me a lot about TikTok, right? Traditional status updates are what I would call tired, right? Today in the social media space, videos are wired. Man, videos perform really well in the social space today. And we'll talk about a couple of tools you can use later on today to create some videos. And then I put Twitter in the tired category because we're always talking about how Twitter is not long for this world. But at the same time, Twitter seems to be experiencing a rapid amount of growth right now. So they're still wired at the same time. Snapchat stories are still around. If you know the story format, Snapchat started the story format. And today, Instagram stories are exploding. Facebook is trying to bring stories to Facebook.com proper. YouTube is bringing stories to their environment. So Snapchat started something called stories, and now stories are exploding everywhere. And then lastly, and most importantly, network-based connections. That is, oh, you're on Facebook. Great, I am too. Let's connect. Kind of tired. What's wired? Oh, I really enjoy learning about digital marketing. Of course we do. We're all here today, right? Great. There's an interest-based community out there that might be on Facebook, it might be on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter what the network is anymore, as much as it does what you enjoy, what interests you, and what can help drive you professionally. And that's why interest-based connections, and we'll bring that back around to the end of this webinar, are so important to me today as well. So for you specifically, right? The path, your individual evolution when it comes to social, and I'll describe this for everyone rather quickly. You can read the words on the screen. You get excited, you set up an account, and people start to like they like me, they really like me, they start to like your business. And then you come to the realization that build it and they will come. It works a little bit, but after a few, call it 100 connections or so, it's rather difficult to build an audience. It requires time and effort. And creativity. That's where you turn to creativity, right? All right, so now we're going to catch the attention of a larger group of people. We were speaking just before the webinar started about something creative that one of the attendees had done today to help drive interest and likely growth in the number of people that they can reach in the social space. And then from there, you realize that measurement and analysis is pretty critical, right? So from excitement to realization to creativity to measurement and analysis, this is a very typical path. And you might be somewhere on this path today. It does not necessarily matter where you are, but just recognize that this is a very typical path when it comes to evolving your way through social media with respect to your businesses. Before we get into the next section of this presentation today, I wanted to answer a question that I get pretty consistently, right? And that question is, do I need to be on Twitter? Do I need to be on LinkedIn? And so I've put some words up on the screen in bold, and you can see Facebook, to me, is all about inspiration. You go there to connect with your family and your friends and to be inspired by what they're doing, right? Twitter is all about influence, not influencers. We've read a lot about influencer marketing, and that's different. Twitter is all about influence because I think that's where the cool kids hang out. That's where your journalists, your analysts, your local organizations, Forsyth County News, for example, is very active on Twitter. That's where your quote unquote cool kids hang out, right? For Instagram, it's all about aspiration, right? So on Instagram, you aspire to something. We used to see, did something happen this year that stopped us from traveling? I don't know, right? You used to see these beautiful travel photos on Instagram or food photos or whatever it is. And you aspire to be able to do that, right? And then LinkedIn is all about professionalism. It's effectively today's Rolodex, if anybody remembers what a Rolodex is anymore. I don't know that I've seen one in many years. So inspiration, influence, aspiration, and professionalism. That's how I think about the major networks that are out there. And the jury's still out on a couple of the others. What is Pinterest all about? What is TikTok all about? We'll let those continue to evolve. These are really the core networks that I encourage my customers, at least, to be active on if they are appropriate for the audience that you're trying to reach. And on any of those networks, I will caution you, it's a little too easy to get caught up in trendy behaviors, bright, shiny objects. The Doge meme is what you see on the screen right now for those that have seen that and know the reference, right? Knowyourmeme.com is a great place to go to check out what is currently trending and what is bright and shiny in the social media space. And while it's pretty easy to get caught up in the bright, shiny objects, the reason that I would encourage you to show some personality in the social media space, right? But also not get caught up in this stuff is because you've got a core mission. Your business has a core mission. You extend that through to social, and you want to be able to reach people and tell them what you're really about. And the bright, shiny objects might be a little distracting for you. So just as a word of caution, I've done it. We've all done it, right? We get a little caught up with these trendy behaviors and these bright, shiny objects, and we tend to forget what our mission is, right? March. What changed in March? I love this website. What day in March is it? Today, actually, I took the screenshot quite a few days ago when I was preparing for this session with everyone. Today is actually March 152nd. And this is, yeah, it's a joke, of course, right? But it is very indicative of the way that your customers feel right now. It's the way we all feel right now, right? March seems to have lasted forever. We are, if we let ourselves be in a period of stasis, right? We don't feel like we are developing or growing personally, professionally within our organizations. And that can be a real problem, right? Because it stifles creativity and it doesn't encourage positive or creative thinking at all. So in March, we all know that the world kind of came to a halt. Things changed rather rapidly. We actually saw the Forsyth County Chamber of Commerce do quite a few things to shift their content creation efforts and bring as much of what they were doing virtually and also amp up what they were doing, right? They started producing a tremendous amount of content for us as members and for us as non-members as well, right? So remember that your customers still feel like it's March 152nd, right? And with that in mind, what do your customers expect of you today? What they expect of you has shifted a little bit, of course, right? And I'll give you an example. Your customers do not expect you to invite them to a party at your office anymore, right? There's not going to be a reggae party at your office anytime in April or March or next month, anything like that. And the reason that reggae party, I just pulled the stock image, right, is because it references Bob Marley, right? And Bob Marley said something that I think we all know, even if we've only heard one or two of his songs, right, which is everything's going to be all right. And I'm here to tell you that everything is going to be all right, but your customers do have a set of expectations in the social media space in particular that they've not had previous to March. So for example, you used to say, we're open on Saturday, we're having our annual sale, we know everyone looks forward to this event and marks their calendar months in advance. Please arrive early. You're not doing that anymore. If you're in the B2B space, there's something similar that applies to you, and you're simply not doing that anymore. Maybe you were having quarterly business review dinners with some of your best customers, right? You're likely not doing a lot of this stuff anymore. And instead, to stick with the consumer example, what you should be saying is we're open. Our staff is here to help you. We're by appointment only, if that's the way that your business is operating. We're available on the phone. We're available via Facebook Messenger. We're available using the chat feature on our website. Don't have a chat feature on your website? Let's talk about putting one up there, right? Relatively easy to do. So your customers need new ways to reach you. And one of the easiest channels that they turn to, because they all have a phone and they all use Facebook and Instagram and any number of social media networks, one of the easiest ways they can turn to find you is via social. And that's why our message needs to be a little softer these days, right? It needs to be a little more helpful. We need to stand ourselves up as experts and show empathy like we've never shown before. And you probably know this stuff, at least you feel it, right? But buy our stuff, right? To go back to that phrase, is simply not appropriate right now. We're having a sale. I don't care, right? I want to know that you're open, that you're here for me, that you're doing the kinds of things that you should be doing as a business to keep me safe, but more importantly, that you're doing things to help me adapt to what I consider to be the new normal, because it is March 152nd, right? So we should be supporting our customers and showing empathy like we've never shown before in the social media space. And I recognize that that is not a direct sales pitch, right? But it is a sphere that we control that shows influence and relationship building, and ultimately your customers will appreciate that far more than they would appreciate the one-off sale or something that's used to drive a temporary spike in business. I'm gonna give you an example. This is Flax Flooring, a Forsyth County business. As I mentioned before, all of the examples moving forward are either Forsyth County businesses and or active chamber members. I love this, right? A little bit of personality. We were talking about dogs just before the webinar started, right? A little bit of personality, telling customers that we are here, we're by appointment only, right? We are keeping safety and sanitation in mind, but you can come on in, you can give us a call. We are here to help you, right? This is a great, clever way to show your customer base and your prospects that you are here, you are open, and that you have their safety in mind, and you are showing empathy, right? It's a fantastic example. We're going to show a couple of other examples now, not necessarily related to the safety message, because I think the safety message should be very clear for all of us who are operating a business at this point. And if you're B2B and you're going into customer locations, you're probably doing it in smaller groups. Maybe you're sending an IT technician in or something along those lines. That's great. And at the same time, you still want that safety message to be in the forefront, and your customers want to see it, right? So moving forward, here's another one, right? The pet spa on Bellevue. It's a dog groomer. Joe is a wonderful person. And she said, hey, we only ask that one customer enter the lobby at a time. But then look at what she did after that. If you are uncomfortable entering, call us from the parking lot. We will come to your car. We will pick up your pet. We will groom them. And then when we're done, within about an hour, we'll call you. You come back and we bring your pet back out to the parking lot. That's a great idea. And it definitely is a way to adapt your business to the fact that it is currently March 152nd. Frosted Pumpkin is a gourmet wedding cake decorator in the Forsyth County area. Weddings, right? People didn't cancel their weddings, but they certainly postponed them. And those weddings, as a result, have become a little bit smaller, right? And so look at what Jeff and Karen, the two owners of Frosted Pumpkin, are doing here, right? They're talking about bridal shower cupcakes. And they're talking about cupcakes specifically because they recognize how the market has shifted. People don't necessarily want to see the 5-tier wedding cake that Jeff has to get up on a ladder to put in place, which he was doing just 3 months ago, right? And they don't want to see that because it's not empathetic. They've probably had to scale back their wedding significantly. They were probably going to invite 200 people, and now it's 20 or 50, and it's in a field, and there are tables that are spaced out, and it's just not what they envisioned. But they are getting married because you can't delay the start of the rest of your life, right? Cupcakes are a great way to show that you've adapted. Pastries, things like that, right? And in this case, they're also doing something simultaneously, which is expanding their market, right? They are a wedding cake decorator. That's what they do for a living. But look at that, bridal showers. Yeah, we're probably still having bridal showers. We're probably still having baby showers as well. What's wrong with cupcakes at bridal showers and baby showers? It's a great way to expand your market. So they're thinking critically about what their customers are experiencing today. They're not shoving 5-tier wedding cakes in their customers' faces because that's not happening right now, nor are they making them. And frankly, it might actually depress someone and be like, I thought that's what my wedding was going to be, but now it's not. And as a result, they've pivoted and they're showing pastries and cupcakes and things that are their individual bites. Great example of how they've adopted and are showing empathy for their customers. This is a video for Sports and Imports Collision. Sports and Imports Collision has a location at RBM, Mercedes RBM off of McFarland Road in Forsyth County. And in May, right, 20,000 teens were given a driver's license without a road test. We remember this. Now, those teens have to go back and take the road test. But at the time, what were we going to do? So 20,000 teens in Georgia were given a driver's license without a road test. So we took that fact, right, and we turned it into a video for their Facebook activities. And we put some kind of horror music behind it, right? And then we said, we hope you never need this phone number, but just in case you do, here it is. And we provided the phone number for Sports and Imports Collision, their number, their email address, their website, right? So we made a little bit of a humorous jab at the fact that the DMV even had to adapt to this new environment. And as a result, we wanted to put in front of people the fact that, you know, maybe you're not driving as much now. And this, by the way, is the message we continued. Maybe you're not driving as much as you used to. Of course you're not, right? But that means that your car that you've been thinking about having that ding fixed has been sitting there in your driveway and is probably not being used. Now's a great time to be without your car for a week or 2 weeks or however long it takes, depending on the severity of the damage, of course, right? So again, we're thinking about our customer situation. They have a vehicle in their driveway that they're not using as much anymore. We're making a little bit of a joke about an existing situation, and we're encouraging them to use that downtime to get something fixed that they've always wanted fixed. And as a result, Sports and Imports has seen an increase in the number of requests that are coming in via their website. They're doing digital estimates now, which is something that we put in place for them. And those digital estimates allow the car owner to stand in their driveway, take a couple of pictures, send them along via email or the form on their website, and receive an estimate back, right? So it's all really easy to take care of, and it's capitalizing on the fact that their cars are very likely sitting in their driveways right now. But because Sports and Imports serves a higher end market, right? They primarily have Mercedes, BMW, Audi certifications in place. Those cars and those car owners probably take a great amount of pride in their car. I mean, after all, they were pretty expensive, right? And they want them fixed. So why not use that downtime to their advantage? Another great way, an example of an organization that is showing empathy for their customers and shifting their message a little bit. And I love Worthington Farms, one of my favorite customers, right? Active in the chamber, and a father-daughter team, making sure that they continue with their business and pushing forward in the best way possible, right? Worthington Farms has a field, people go and pick strawberries, and then they pick pumpkins in the fall, and then they do this Christmas festival of lights in the winter. It's an amazing event location. Wow. Events have, I don't know if you've noticed, but they've taken a little bit of a hit, right? Especially events where people are gathering right, in large numbers. I don't need to tell you that. We know that. We've been there, done that, right? But in this particular instance, Worthington Farms is poking a little bit of fun at that, right? And then with this message, they pushed forward. They knew that their strawberry crop this year was going to be strong. They also knew at the same time, and by the way, the strawberry crop is effectively end of April, beginning of May. Probably the worst possible time, right? So how do we make sure that their strawberries continue to move, right? Well, we stood up an online ordering system for them. We made sure that their customers understood that there was a drive-through or a curbside pickup that was available, and strawberries moved as quickly as they would have if they had allowed people into their fields to pick them. And this is just another way that we were adapting to our customers' needs. Customers still want fresh fruit. They have definitely have an affinity for Worthington Farms, those customers that have been coming for years and years and picking strawberries. They didn't want to stop that. They were a little saddened by the fact that they couldn't go out into the fields and en masse and pick strawberries, but they love fresh fruit and they wanted access to it. So Worthington Farms capitalized on that in a very positive way, showed empathy for their customers. You're sensing a theme here, right? And turned their model to the side. I wouldn't say they flipped it upside down. That's not at all what they did, right? They turned their model to the side and they thought creatively about how they could still serve their customers, given that they couldn't gather in large numbers in the field anymore. This is Westside Beverage. They're off of Post Road in Forsyth County, right? What I like about the message here, let's be honest, it's liquor, and beer and wine. Not sure that right now they need any help necessarily marketing themselves better. Right? We're doing a great job for them. They're doing a great job themselves. And I've seen a number of jokes that people say like, okay, so right now we're all drinking every day, right? So for those that enjoy alcohol, they know that Westside Beverage is open and they know that they can go in there and buy what they need. But the wrong message would be, for example, cases of wine or cases of beer, encouraging people to gather in large numbers. Not necessarily encouraging the large numbers, but encouraging people to think about what they used to do and now they're not, right? So what I love about this message here is that this glass of summertime, as Chad calls it, Chad is one of the owners there, right? This glass of summertime, it, for me, conjures an image of me sitting and relaxing, maybe with my family, maybe with a small group of friends on the back deck during the summer months. It's exactly what all of us are doing right now. So all Chad has done here with this message is connect himself, showing a little bit of empathy to his customers and the situation that they're currently in. And this is a great example of that. All right, so we've gone through a number of examples today of the ways in which I believe businesses are doing a great job of connecting themselves to their customers by showing a little bit of empathy and trying to best understand what their customer situation is today. And that's how you effectively refine your social media sales pitch. It's no longer about driving large numbers of people into your store if you're consumer facing. It's no longer about encouraging large trade show gatherings, right? When is the trade show coming back? I have no idea, right? If you're on the B2B side, instead, It's about putting yourself in your customer's shoes more so than you ever have, and making sure that the message that you put forward, it feels right for where your customers are today. So that's effectively the end of the slides. And at this point, I'm going to walk through a couple of things that you can do immediately, a couple of tools that you can use, and a couple of things that you can think about to round out a little bit of what we talked about from a strategic perspective, to make sure that everyone walks away today with a couple of pretty solid immediate actions that you can take. And that's important for me when we do talks like this. I want to make sure that you have a solid understanding of my perspective and where I'm coming from, but at the same time that you can walk away with a couple of immediate things, right? And so let's go back to that tired versus wired, right? Let's revisit it for a moment. We talked a little bit about burgeoning networks like TikTok. We talked a little bit about how the status update has evolved and become more about strong imagery and videos to some degree. We've talked a little bit about this resurgence that Twitter is seeing, primarily because journalists and analysts and local news influencers spend their time there. We've talked about evolving formats on the social media networks like the story, and then interest-based connections as opposed to network-based connections. Let's take all that forward as a refresher and move to things that you can do immediately. Number one, right? We talked about this a little bit already. Don't get distracted by new trends. It is overwhelming, right? If you try to think about all of the things that you can do in the social media space at any given point in time, it's truly overwhelming, right? And it can be a full-time job, right? My first formal full-time job where social media was a core part of what I was doing, I was referred to as a social media manager. And that's a normal role today, right? So corporations hire individuals or teams of individuals specifically to help manage social. Obviously, we can get a little overwhelmed. Stay the course. If you are in the B2C space, if you are consumer facing, right? Facebook, Instagram are very obviously where you should be spending your time when it comes to connecting with your customers. And start a TikTok account and make sure that you understand what that is. If you're in the B2B space, don't worry about TikTok yet. It's going to be a while, right? But if you're in the B2B space, remember that LinkedIn has become an even more important tool now, more so than ever. And if you're in the B2B space and you want to catch the attention of analysts or influencers or local news organizations, spend some time on Twitter, right? So in other words, don't worry about all of the social media information that's coming at you and all of the things that you have to do and all of the status updates you've got to get out the door. Refine yourself and make sure that everything that you do isn't driven by the newest trend. Instead, it's driven by your organization's mission, and where you should be spending your time in the social space is very obvious if you think about your organization's mission. Now, related to that, I said, don't get distracted by new trends, but the second bullet point on the slide is encouraging you to think about where your audience is and be there. And if you're not already there, go there. So for example, if you are selling into IT managers, right, to use Eclipse Networks as an example, right? If you're selling into IT managers, where are they? They're on LinkedIn. Absolutely, right? You can target them with advertising. You can target the groups that they're in. You can begin to participate in those groups. LinkedIn is a very obvious place for you. If you're on the consumer side, right? If you're flax flooring, one of the examples that I showed in one of the previous slides, right? Your audience is on Facebook. Your audience is on Instagram, and you want to make sure that you're there and that you are connecting with your customers. Now, those are two pretty obvious examples, but as you think more critically about your business and where you want it to be, where the management team wants you to go with the responsibility that they've given you, depending on how large or small the business is, think about your audience and who it is you want to reach and where they are, and make sure that you are there, right? The third bullet point, this is before we get into some very specific tools that you can use. I'm just going to say this. You've hopefully heard it, and you've most certainly heard it from me today. Make your customer the hero, right? If you put your customer at the heart of everything that you do, it's really hard to go wrong. And I mean that genuinely. And there are any number of books on Amazon that you can buy that talk about making your customer the hero. You've likely heard that phrase before, and it might actually feel a little dated to you. And it should. Good. We should, as marketers, be saying this very regularly. But if you put your customer at the center of everything that you do, and you speak to them regularly, and you get feedback and input from them, it's really difficult to go wrong when it comes to refining what you do in the social media space and how you sell into an audience that is like-minded with respect to your customer. So make sure that your customer is at the heart of everything that you do. Now, the last two bullet points on the screen are specifically about tools, right? I'd mentioned that video works really well in the social media space. All of the numbers I'm looking at, all of the analysis that I've done recently is telling me that videos and sharp imagery, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a video, but it has to be a bright, compelling image, something that really works well, right? Videos primarily are overperforming with respect to traditional status updates. And there are a couple of tools out there that have started to crop up as a result of the overperformance of video, because I don't believe that analysis that tells me that videos are overperforming, I don't think that that's going anywhere anytime soon, right? I use a tool called wave.video, and I know that's kind of an awkward URL, right? But it is wave.video, and there are a few of them out there. I used to use a tool called promo.com. That it just wasn't for me. I'm not saying it's a bad tool, right? But there are quite a few tools out there that will allow you to very quickly create professional looking videos. Now, they're not video shoots, right? Camera crew isn't coming to your office. You're not able to necessarily capture yourself or your customer with ease, but they are professional videos. The one that I talked about with respect to sports and imports, where we created a fun video about how there are these teen drivers on the road that never had to take a test, right? A little bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. We made that video using wave.video. So that's a great tool that you can use, push your video creation efforts forward. And by the way, just before this webinar started, to go back to images, we were talking about Canva, right? Canva is a great tool as well. So Canva, and Canva allows you to create compelling imagery, right? So between imagery and videos with wave.video or promo or something along those lines, you've got a great set of tools that can really amp up your traditional status updates, right? You don't necessarily have to share things that people might just flip past with their thumb because it just didn't catch their attention, right? And then lastly, I talked at the beginning of this slide about how managing social can feel overwhelming, right? Consider software. If you are logging into Facebook Business Manager on your phone, you're logging into Twitter on your phone, you've got Instagram logged in on the desktop because you wanted to check something out. That's fine, but you do want to consider software to help you manage your social media efforts a little bit more, refine your social media efforts a bit more, right? And the benefit to using software is that you get an intense level of analysis, which is great. And you also get the ability to more easily target individuals. So LinkedIn, for example, has targeting features built into the status updates that they allow you to post on LinkedIn. They're a little hidden though. And if you bring one of these social media management tools in, you can not only make yourself more efficient, you're guaranteed never to miss a comment from a customer or a question, and you get analysis to go along with it. My favorite tool is Sprout Social. Full disclosure, I used to work there, right? So of course that's my favorite tool, right? But there are others out there as well. I do believe though today as a former customer, a former employee and now a customer, that is the best tool out there, especially for small businesses. But there are others, and I'll tell you what they are. There's another one called Hootsuite. You've probably heard of that one because they have a free offering. So you can get started with Hootsuite for free, and if you like it, you can look at the other ones out there that are paid. There's one called Agorapulse. So between Hootsuite, Agorapulse, and my personal favorite, Sprout Social, you can't go wrong with bringing in social media software to help you manage your social media efforts. So with that, I just wanted to recap very quickly before we open it up to a few questions, right? It can feel overwhelming to have to simultaneously adapt yourself personally to this new environment, because we all know it's March 152nd, right? It can definitely feel overwhelming on the business side to have to determine what it is that our customers want to hear from us today. But once we do, don't get distracted, stay the course, determine where your audience is, make your customer the hero, and use a couple of the tools that we've talked about today to really kind of amp up what you're doing. Canva, Wave, Sprout, these are all tools that can help you tremendously be more efficient and also be more effective. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to me ramble for about 40 minutes today. The chamber encouraged me to do this, and I'm just going to leave it up there. My number is up there, my cell phone number, my office number, my email, and our website. Remember that we are local to Forsyth County. And even if you have a question and you have no intention of ever entering into a business relationship with us, if you are also local to Forsyth County, we should all help each other. Just let me know what that question is. And I'm happy to reach back out to you and have a conversation with you. With that, let's turn it back over to our gracious host at the Chamber.
Thank you, Greg. That was a very great presentation. I know I definitely learned a lot. We definitely have a couple questions. So Kelly Clips wants to start doing videos and like add an and now you know kind of section with those videos. She's bought all the like lights and tripods for that, and she started using TikTok. She wants to know, is TikTok the easiest to post across social media outlets? And she likes how you can write the video, write like the text across the videos. But she wants to know, how do people get the rolling words across the bottom of the video, and do they even need the text on the videos?
Yeah. So a couple of things there. We'll unpack that for you. First, TikTok is simultaneously a growing social network, and also kind of by accident, a video creation tool, because you can take the videos that you create on TikTok and you can download them and then you can use them in other places. So that's actually a fairly clever use for TikTok. The words on the bottom that you see, some I don't think that, with respect to the question that came in, this is what we're talking about. You can do that natively inside of TikTok, but when you look at the people on TikTok that have a million individuals that they've connected with, a million plus. And by the way, if you go to TikTok, I believe it's tiktok.com/trends, that Google will definitely get you there. TikTok has started to release daily trend reports. You can see the most significant individuals out there and how they're producing their videos. Oftentimes, those individuals are producing videos in an Adobe tool or something along those lines, and then they're bringing them in. They're actually spending a tremendous amount of time putting those videos together. So I like the clever use of TikTok to create a video and then download it and repurpose it in other places. If you've purchased, so you probably have ring lights now. And by the way, iPhone 11 or above is very likely the best video camera all of us have. The most recent Apple Worldwide Developers Conference, so this was in June, they did it virtually. And afterwards, a couple of the key chief officers at Apple did a series of sort of podcast interviews with influencers in their space. And they mostly did those video interviews with iPads and iPhones, right? So even though Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference was beautifully shot. I mean, I don't even know how they did some of the things that they did, of course, right? And they're not telling anyone. Afterwards, the executives that made the rounds with journalists and did video interview after video interview, they did it with iPhones and iPads. So don't forget that that's one of the best cameras we have today. A couple of ring lights, you're definitely headed in the right direction. And from there, I would encourage you, if you're producing video locally like that in your office and you're spending that much time doing it, pick up one of the tools that I'd mentioned instead of using TikTok for video creation. Pick up a wave.video, pick up a promo.com. You'll not only get access to a library of audio tracks and stock video footage, you'll also get a pretty easy to use editor that allows you to drag words on the screen, make them roll away, make them roll in. They're actually relatively easy tools to use. I would say the first time that I picked up iMovie, which is the video editing tool that comes as a default on Apple's machines, right? I opened it up, I was like, I'm not sure that I really want to learn this, right? And then I started using Promo and Wave.video, much easier, so simple to use. So good questions there. I hope I covered the gamut on them for you. I would encourage you to continue to experiment with TikTok. It's great that you've got time there. That's awesome. It's going to be a bit before we see any real movement there because they are still developing their advertising model. And let's not kid ourselves. Ultimately, it will be an advertising model that drives the revenue for them unless they are wildly creative and think of something else. But all indications today are that the advertising model is going to stick and they're going to put it in place. And that's when it becomes really interesting for those of us like Eclipse who are in the B2B space.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's Kelly said that answered her questions, and she appreciates you sharing that. Another question we received is, how true is social media scheduling tools negatively affect your reach and engagement? Molly said she's read several conflicting articles about this. and herself as she uses later, but is there one that is a better suited for social media platforms, like a scheduling tool?
Yeah, Molly, I'll tell you what. I had to answer when I was working. I was in a sales role at Sprout Social, right? So I was selling social media management software into primarily the enterprise, right? So think, for us at least, it was 1,000 employees or more at the time, right? I had to answer that question so much, and there was a point in time, absolutely, when you are effectively penalized for using a third party management tool and not going direct to the networks to post your status updates. That was true. But it was true so long ago that at this point, if you think about based on my experience selling and also working with the networks, by the way, the Twitter headquarters in downtown San Francisco are some of the coolest headquarters buildings I've ever seen, right? These companies are investing heavily in the relationships they have with the third-party social media management tools on the higher end, Hootsuite, Sprout Social, Sprinkler, Koros, right? Those are the enterprise level offerings that are out there. The social networks need those social media management tools as much as the social media management tools need the social networks. It's a very symbiotic relationship. So at this point, there is no penalizing that is occurring as a result of those tools. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat there, right? If you're an upstart social media management tool and you've not taken the time required to develop a relationship with the networks, they may end up penalizing you, right? You may exceed the number of API calls, a little technical, but I think we all get it, right? You might exceed the number of API calls that you can make in a day, and as a result, your tool comes to a halt. They might view your activity as maybe spammy, right? Kind of a harsh term, but they might view your activity as spammy because you're using a tool, not you specifically, Molly, but because generically you're using a tool that they don't have a good, solid relationship with. So in summary, today, there is no longer, while there was, a penalty in place for using third-party management tools, as long as the third-party management tool that you're using is one of the known respected ones in the marketplace. And if this is the Molly that I think it is, we'll have a great conversation about this at some point in the future. And I'm more than happy to give you unlimited access to Sprout Social so that you can start experimenting with it, because with the agency relationship in place now, you've got unlimited access to it through me. Good question.
Thank you, Greg. Is there any more questions that we have? At this point, y'all can also unmute your cameras and mics to ask Greg a question as well.
This was so valuable. Like you mentioned a lot of tools that I want to go investigate. And I'm like, pardon my French, I'm like, holy crap, I'm gonna have to book a day just to boot camp myself on all these tools. But I'm really excited to start doing videos. You know, my thought is, how do I get my team involved in the videos so it's not just Ellie at Eclipse Networks, you know, because I don't want to be the brand. I want like the team to be the brand. So, I mean, do you have any suggestions on getting network engineers that are kind of nerdy involved?
Yeah. So I would suggest a two-phased approach there, right? With the tools that I mentioned that allow you to start very quickly in the production of videos, the overwhelming majority of their stock video footage is quite good. Use the stock video footage first,
Oh,
develop at least a couple of proofs of concept, right? That way you can take that internally, get people excited about it, and then all of a sudden the network engineer goes, okay, yeah, you can point a camera at me, and I'm happy to say a couple of things, and now you've got the human to human connection that's in place, right? But at least initially, as your first phase, just use the tool and all the stock video footage that comes along with it, as well as the underlying audio tracks. Put some words on the screen, put your logo on it, build a proof of concept, right? And then bring that internally, and people will get excited about it. Then it'll be a little bit easier to turn the video towards a network engineer.
is there a video length that works the best?
Good question. So there's not only a video length that works the best, there's a video length that doesn't work well at all, right? Keep in mind that there are some restrictions in place across the networks, but they're not all the same, right? So Instagram's video length is restricted to 60 seconds. If you're going to take the time to produce a video using one of the tools I mentioned, you're going to get a network engineer in place, and you're going to have to dedicate some time to it, right? It would be a shame if that time was spent creating a 4.5 minute video only to turn around and have to edit it again for Instagram. So I would suggest staying under 60 seconds from most of your videos. That way it's applicable to all of the networks. And these tools, by the way, also have guides in place that say 16:9 is the best size for Facebook, and it converts the video to that size. Square is, 1:1, the ratio is best for Instagram, and it will convert the video and move the words a little bit closer in. So they do a lot of the conversion for you. Keep it under 60 seconds, and you'll have a video that applies to all of the networks that you're on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, if there's no more questions for us, I think we're going to wrap up. So, Greg, thank you again for joining us today. This was great, very great information, and we look forward to having you on here soon. So just as a reminder for all of our participants today, this webinar will be recorded and placed on our togetherforfoco.com website for you guys to access. So please stay tuned for some more marketing webinars that will be coming up shortly. So I hope everyone has a great day.